Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to have one of our alumni back with us today, Joana Ardelean, to talk about how to achieve a blissful work-life balance, which I'm excited to learn some pointers and tips. I feel like this is a topic that is really important, right? Especially as the world continues to shift and change under the pandemic. I think work-life balance and balance in general is something we're all trying to achieve. So I'm looking forward to learning from you as well today, Joana. For those of you who didn't get a chance to read Joana's very impressive bio, she's a human resource executive, coach, speaker, and writer. She also has spent 2 decades at industry giants such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, PR Donnelly, and just different local government agencies. But her passion really shines through when she's helping high-performing women struggling with burnout and feeling overwhelmed at work and home. So Joana loves to show ambitious professionals the incredible life of flow, calm, and ease that's possible on the other side of their struggle, and to help them get there. And we're very grateful that she was able to take her coveted framework and put it into her newly published book, Burnout 911, The Ultimate Guide to Work-Life Balance. And that's what brings Joana here with us here today, is she's going to be sharing principles from her book. So Joana, thank you for coming back and to share your expertise and leadership with our community today. I will go ahead and turn it over to you so you can get started.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Christy. I am honored to be here today, and I truly hope that the presentation will help some of the folks who are in the audience, as well as some who might be listening to the recording, get over that struggle. And in the current world, a state of affairs, it's certainly a need that I personally went through. Right, that struggle of achieving that work-life balance and then getting to that calm and peace that we all really desire. So without further ado, we'll get straight to it. It's 5 a.m. and my phone rings. I'm thinking, who calls at 5 a.m.? I don't even look and I just turn it off. Then the phone rings again. This time I pick it up and look, and it's my sister. She's crying. And in between tears, she's telling me that dad passed away. What happened? What? In that moment, the entire sky just completely collapsed on me. You see, I had lost my mom early on when I was just 8, and now my dad was gone too, and I wasn't ready for it. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. Are we ever ready to lose a parent? My name is Joana Ardelean. I am a speaker, a writer, and a proud Romanian above all, with rich traditions filled with faith. But most importantly, I'm the mother of 2 sunshine kids. On many days, you'll find me drinking tea with my princess, my own Princess Diana, or dueling with my little Jedi, Gabriel. Today, though, I want to spend some time putting our life in perspective and find that coveted work-life balance. When I got that call from my sister, I was 5 months pregnant with my son. And she says, but you can fly, you're high risk. My pregnancy was indeed high risk, and my father and my sister were in Romania at the time. The flight there, a full trip, is about 10 to 12 hours. And I had a high-risk pregnancy, but I had to go. I had to say goodbye to my dad. And so I did, and came back in 3 very short days because I had very important deadlines at work. Can you relate? I didn't feel like I could take more than 3 days, despite the fact that my dad had just passed away. I literally flew over the ocean and came back in 3 short days. What I want to share with you, though, is an incident that happened on the flight back.
Oh God.
So I flew back from Europe, and I had 2 legs to the trip, a short trip from Budapest to Zurich, and then the long leg that flew us over the ocean back to Chicago. The incident happened on the flight, that short leg, right? We were in a small plane flying from Budapest to Zurich, and everything was fine up until the plane starts shaking. The pilot comes on and says, we're experiencing some turbulence, as if we didn't know it already. We're gonna descend below the clouds to try and get some clear sky. Except the plane didn't stop shaking. In fact, it got worse. By this time, I'm holding on to the chair and my hands feel so clenched, my heart starts beating. And just about when I thought we were gonna land already, the pilot comes on again and says, it's not safe to land. We're gonna go back up, fly across the Alps and come back down into Zurich from the other side. My mind starts pounding and racing and my heart can't take it anymore. So I'm thinking, how can it be safer to fly across the mountains and come back on the other side? We were already experiencing some heavy turbulence. How can that be safer? And all I can think about is the baby in my belly that would not see the day of light. Because now my mind goes to, what if the plane crashes in the Alps and nobody will find us in the snow? That was the longest hour of my life. We did eventually go across the Alps and came back and landed in Zurich from the other side. Once on the ground, and I was able to catch my breath, I asked the flight attendant for a cup of water. I share that the trip really shook me because truly I started praying and my prayer got really loud. They probably heard it. So I asked her, were you not afraid? I was seriously shaken to my bone. And I asked her, were you not afraid? And her response really stunned me. In a very confident voice, she says, I trusted the pilot knows what he's doing. And that was it. I trusted the pilot knows what he's doing. Did you ever had any of those instances in your life where you feel like Providence is just speaking to you? Raise your hand if you did. This incident really woke me up from a life of barely going through the motions. And I decided that something different had to happen, that I wanted something else out of my life. I mentioned Providence here for a good reason, because before I got that call from my sister that my dad had passed away, my life was all an expression. And that whole trip truly was an expression of what my life was like. It was just now staring in my face and I could not ignore it anymore. Before that call, I was so overwhelmed and burned out that I was secretly looking for a way out. And here's the stewardess just telling me, I trusted the pilot knows what he's doing. That was truly the answer I was looking for. I was so burned out and overwhelmed before I took that trip that I even felt guilty. I was so miserable because to everybody else out there, I had it all. I had a great career. I had a good family. I had the house and everything else. What was there to complain about? I had just left the big four global consulting firms, and we were expecting our firstborn. I wanted to get away from that insane life, those long hours in the big four. And so, because now we were expanding our family, and I chose the government sector because I thought that would provide the ultimate work-life balance. Doesn't the entire world out there think that government employees do nothing all day? Well, I was one of those who thought that, right? And thought the government sector is the perfect way, the perfect sector to find that work-life balance I was looking for. So within 3 short years, I grew my career from basically an entry level to a department head role. I put a lot of soul into it. I completely transformed the HR department I was leading. I had also a lot of leadership positions in trade associations. I was working on a graduate degree right here at Roosevelt at night, while I was also single parenting a toddler and expecting a second child, with my husband practically gone for the majority of the week for his work. And I felt powerful and in control of the many plates I had in the air. Do you feel in control of the many plates you have in the air right now? Until I almost crashed so bad, I did not know which way was up. And it didn't happen overnight. Burnout, in fact, takes time to grab its victim. It creeps in slowly over time, and you don't even notice it until it's almost too late. And that happened despite the fact that I loved the work I was doing. I had a lot of positive change I was making. I received a lot of accolades, had a lot of accomplishments, was promoted 3 different times. I was working on a graduate degree. But despite all of that, I lost the drive for all of it. Success felt so darn empty. I truly didn't care about any of it anymore. And again, I was in the government sector where everybody thinks it's the perfect work-life balance, or at least, right, that might be the sector, the one sector perhaps, who might provide that work-life balance. It happened after I had left the big four and the crazy long hours and the commute and the travel and all that fun stuff. It happened after all of that. In fact, I got myself to a point where I was dragging myself to work. I was stopping in front of the office building, trying to recoup my strength to go in. That overwhelm and lost willpower just made me not do much of anything during the day, which in turn led to late hours every day to try and still get the work done. Then, in turn, resulted in me missing precious time with my daughter. That missed connection time with my daughter then fed the mommy guilt, and I felt so miserable. And the cycle went on and on. I was so burned out that I got to a point where I really did not care about anything anymore. Did you ever feel like you can't take it anymore, but you don't know how to shake it off? Are you in that spot now? And this is the place where I'm going to stop for a second and really ask the audience here if we have somebody who's in that spot now. Or certainly if we've been in that place where it's just too much. We feel like we can't take it one more moment, but we have no idea where to start, how to fix it. Can I see some hands? Has anybody been in that place before? If you are, you're not alone. For a fact. In fact, the statistics are alarming. 75% of employees currently feel burned out at work. That's 2/3 of the employees out there, of all the workers out there. It's an alarming statistic. And it's certainly a symptom of the culture and the world we live in. But today, I want to see and help you see the other side, what's possible, and try and get you there in some 3 small steps. So who's ready to discover the life where you can have it all? My challenge for you today is to throw out society's definition of success. I believe it starts there. And our culture and many other performance cultures, not just the American culture, teach us that financial reward and achievement is what success is made of. Is this how you measure success? The dollars you bring home? The title you have? The accolades? The promotions? The degrees? The big house? The car? Right? The list goes on. Is that how we define success? And I would like for the audience to participate. It would be helpful. I'm curious how you define success for yourself, right? Whether it's this or it has other elements. I'm going to ask for some volunteers who want to share how they define success in general. What does success mean? Do I have a volunteer?
Joanna, I can go.
Yes, please.
I'm just eating lunch as we're here, though. For me, accomplishing my goals is really how I would define my own success. So that has varied through the years and changed. But a lot of what you have on the slide is, I would be lying if I didn't say that some of my goals are, revolve around those things. So, continuing to move up in my career, or, doing my doctoral work. The things that are missing from here is like being a great mom and wife, and having a stable household to raise my kids in and to come home to. My health is important to me. So while I'm eating pizza right now, making time for the gym and heart health and those types of things. So it's a variety of things, spiritual well-being, making sure that for me, me and my maker are squared away. So it's a variety of things.
Yes. Well, thank you. That's perfect. Because indeed, I feel that the pandemic here, right, and just the way the world goes, did have many of us sit back and reconsider our life and look at it, right? Certainly before the pandemic, the list here was all we were looking at. Success means literally financial rewards and achievements. And certainly that's part of it, right? But is it enough? Because my definition of success is the quality of the life you lead, right? I want to empower you to become that amazing person who has it all and defines their success by the quality of the life they live. Someone who knows the secret to building the good life, but also has time to enjoy each and every day, right? Because what is it good at if you build all that wealth and fortune, but you don't really have time to enjoy it? Or you delay it until I retire, until I have the time, until that project is done. How about a person who flows between each facet of life with grace, purpose, and energy? Because again, if we don't have purpose, where we're going, if we don't have that energy, right? Because we put it all into work, the late hours at the office, does that leave us room for the other areas of life that we want to dedicate time to? How about close connection with dear ones, with family, with friends? Is that part of the success definition? Is that important in our life to be able to have time to invest, to build those relationships and develop that close connection? Soul-filling leisure activities, taking care of your health. Of course, financial well-being is part of it, but it's just one of them, right? And so don't we put disproportionate amount of time into building that financial well-being, which in turn leaves us not a lot of time to dedicate to all those other areas that are part of leading the good life, right? Having a quality life. The spirituality, our volunteer here mentioned spirituality as one of those. How about a lasting legacy of positive impact? First in our family, but then also in our profession, in the society. So right about now is the time when I'm going to ask you to find a pen and a piece of paper, because as promised, this is a workshop. I'm going to ask you to participate and share your thoughts to the next exercises that are coming up here. And I'm also going to ask for volunteers. So don't be shy, please participate. This is actually going to help not just you as you speak, but it might shed some light and give ideas to somebody else who's in the workshop here. And so it's helpful for all of us when we participate. So here's the first step on our journey to that good life. We need to figure out what that looks like. So bring that piece of paper and that pen, and I will encourage you at this point to jot down some thoughts. We're going to use those thoughts. So please take a moment, grab that paper and that pen if you don't have it, and tell me, what is your big vision for your life? What does the good life look like for you? If money and time were no object, money and time were no object, what would your life look like? What is that dream life for you? And I give you permission to dream big. But what does your heart really desire? So I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes here and ask everybody to jot down their thoughts. And I'm going to grab some volunteers at the end of those 2 minutes to share what the good life looks like for them. We'll start at 2 minutes now. And again, the takeaway home here is to focus on what your heart really wants, right? Not perhaps what your family is telling you you should want, what society is telling you you should want. What do you really want? What does that life look like for you, that good life? All right, Do we have a volunteer who wants to share? And like we mentioned, this was set up as a workshop. So I'm going to encourage everybody to participate. Yes. Please go ahead. I'm sure Boglio. I'm not sure what your first name is.
Yeah, my first name is Virginia. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Virginia. Yes, thank you for being
Thank
brave.
you for doing this. Okay, so I've been thinking about this a long time because I'm in a period in my life where I'm transitioning from career and preparing for retirement. So this has been really, really important and a focus on my mind for a long time. So what a good life looks like for me is to travel, to spend time with friends, to spend time with family, work with kids or volunteer with kids, to have good health, and to have a great creative outlook. I know when I was in my 20s and 30s and I was going to school and I had a transition from school to getting married, I was very, very creative because I had a lot of time on my hands. So I've lost that over the years. I don't have time to volunteer. With the pandemic and everything, spending time with friends has gotten really, really thin. I mean, the thing I do have still going is spending a lot of time with family, but not a whole lot of traveling. The pandemic has changed a lot for all of us. So there are a lot of things that I wish that I had, but my job takes a lot of time. And when I get home, I'm exhausted and I don't want to make time for anything else. I just want to go home. So a lot of what you said is totally true.
Awesome. I love your share, Virginia. And indeed, the pandemic did have us reconsider. And I'm curious to find out if that's when you started to think about this transition, right? That you're going towards retirement. Did the pandemic kind of force you into it a little bit?
Well, I was thinking about it before, but during the pandemic, it really hit home because I'm like an hour away from my job and I commute every day. And after being home, I'm like, well, this is part of what's exhausting me. Not that I didn't know it, but it just kind of slaps you in the face. It's like, look at, and I mean, all the time that I waste, like I can quit at 5. I'm at home, I could put my gym shoes on and I could go walking. When I'm at work, I don't necessarily quit at 5. I leave at 6. I get home at 7. I'm not going to go walking at 7. And now I got to make dinner and I got to feed the cat and I got to go through the mail and I got to, and there's not many hours left in the evening before you go to bed. So just the commute alone is a huge factor,
Mm-hmm.
And so luckily right now I have a hybrid. I wish it was more of a hybrid and I'm going to work on that. A hybrid, this is a perfect example, gives me the opportunity to take my lunch, sit on the couch and do something like this that is for myself.
Yes.
I wouldn't do this if I was in the office.
I hear you. And that you nailed the handwriting there, because don't we just get pulled into and sucked into work a lot more when we're in the office? And these days, unfortunately, actually, a lot of people say that blend between work and life, right? It's all also affecting them. So that hybrid, right? Or those who work remotely permanently, or, as a new way of existing now, there are some struggles there as well, right? So it really is though on us to find that balance, right? But thank you so much, Virginia, for sharing. That's what it's all about, right? And you mentioned the close connections with family and friends, right? That's part of it. But if you get home at 7, is there a lot of time left, right? To do that, volunteering, All those areas are important and we tend to put them to the wayside. Well, when I'll have time, right? When work is is less busy, when, the new boss comes in or whatever, because we are short staffed. So we keep postponing, the target keeps moving. Anybody else wants to share before we move on to a fun exercise here? All right, so let's move straight into discovering your North Star. Because once we establish the vision of our life, right, where we want to go, now we have the target, we know where we're headed. We do need a North Star to help us along the way. And we'll do that by naming our guiding values, such that our journey is meaningful and headed in the right direction. If you're ready, let's do this. The first on our tall order for today is discovering our core values and naming them. Now, contrary to common belief, we don't have a set of values at work and different values in our private life. The same values are there and present within us, regardless of setting. And that's proof when we tend to feel incongruent in a workplace that has values that conflict with our personal values. So say, for example, a company that whose culture encourages long hours. The long hours are the norm. Dinner is even catered in. You don't have to do anything, just work, right? You don't even have to go home to eat. I was part of one of those companies in my earlier years. All is taken care of for you, except one of your big core values is family. That's what you hold the most important in your life. And you took that job because you paid well. Don't we all do it, right? For that nice paycheck. But that incongruence between the company values, success at all costs, and that personal value of family just clashes over time. And you become restless and unhappy, despite that great salary, right? That works for a little time. That nice paycheck, it gives you a little hype and you're happy for a little time, but then it gets old rather fast. And despite the fact that you might have work success, you still feel like something's missing. And that is because we don't really sit down to do this kind of work, to figure out what our North Star is, what our core values are, and then work from there. So for instance, when we choose a workplace, right? Do we pull in the things and filter that decision through the things that are most important in our life? Or does that dollar sign that's dangled in front of us really distract us, right? Or that title, because we might be a promotion from where we are right now, and it might come with a bit of a bigger paycheck, right? Do we just rest that whole decision on, again, that definition of success that society gives us, which says success is really just financial achievement and accomplishments? But is it? We just talked about that. Is it just financial achievement and accomplishments? And it's not, right? But we don't really stop to figure out what our core values are. And so when we make those big decisions in our life, such as picking a new workplace, we don't filter that type of a decision to align with our personal values. And so the only inevitable consequence is that without that clarity our core values provide, we start adjusting to somebody else's values. That is the values in the workplace, the values of a group we are part of, maybe even a social group. And what happens? Slowly, we lose ourselves. Because now we're adjusting to somebody else's values that are not ours. Of course, our own values are still there, right? They're deep inside us. We just don't respect them. We don't live into our values. And so because of that, we tend to feel incomplete and restless. The great resignation we see out there in the workplace, the craziness of everybody moving around, in my mind, is just a symptom of this. People realize through the pandemic that they've just been pulled towards something that's not what they hold most important in their life. And they're choosing to make a change. So it's no wonder that when we make decisions that don't respect our core values, over time that becomes overwhelm, exhaustion. Victoria just mentioned that, right? Just feels exhausted at the end of the day. And naturally, unfortunately, that leads to burnout. So the exercise I would like all of us to take next is that great step of figuring out and naming our core values. Now, there are 3 questions that I have here on the screen that I would like you to think about before or when we go through the list of core values. I'm going to provide you a list of core values in the next screen here. And the goal is to choose 2 core values. We all only have 2. If you have many things that are important to you, nothing is truly important. I've took this knowledge and body of work from Brené Brown's book, Dare to Lead. I love Brené Brown's book, Brené Brown's work in general. So this exercise is actually from her book. And she advises that when we go through the list of core values that she discovered through research are the list of what most people out there find or define as a core value. When we go through them and try to choose our 2, because it's really just 2 core values, we should have the questions here in the back of our head. Does this value define me? Is this who I am at my best? Is this a filter I use to make hard decisions? And the kicker here is to resist from choosing words that you've been taught to be, but that don't necessarily ring true to who you really are, right? We are all influenced, by our family, by the expectations that are placed on us, even by the society, right? Maybe even a teacher who would like us to see succeed in a certain area or another. Let's put those influences aside here, right? And do not choose words that don't really reflect who you really are deep down. Here's how Brené Brown defines our core values. Our values should be so crystallized in our minds, so infallible, so precise and clear and unassailable that they don't really feel like a choice. They don't really feel like a choice. They are simply a definition of who we really are in our lives. All right, so that pen and paper, let's bring it back out. I have here on the screen a list of core values. The list is rather long. However, so I'm going to go through each one of them. This is typically meant as an in-person workshop, but this will work just fine here, even if we're doing it remotely. It is important, again, to think about those questions. Does this define me? Is this who I am at my best? Is this a filter I use to make hard decisions? So I'm going to go through the list here, and what I would like you to do as I read the value, jot it down on your piece of paper. Okay, if that feels like that's who you are, jot it down. Now we're going to probably end up with 10 or 15 of those words initially, because it's hard to pinpoint exactly the 2, right? But what we'll do next, and I'll give you a couple minutes, is to sort through those 10 or 15 initial ones and try and narrowing them down to just 2, right? What I found when I did this exercise for myself is that I truly had just 2, but then among those 10 or 15 on my list, some of them were just subsets, right? Or supporting values of those main 2 ones, right? So it's helpful to have that list of 10. All right, so I'm gonna go through the list here, and as I read one of those values that rings true to you, please jot it down, okay? No judgment here. Accountability, and the list here is in alphabetical order, so there's no emphasis on any one of them. Your values are your values, and if you don't find them here, feel free to write down your own if there is one that you don't necessarily find here listed. Accountability. Achievement, adaptability, adventure, altruism, ambition, authenticity, balance, beauty, being the best, belonging, career, caring, commitment, community, compassion, competence, confidence, connection, contentment, contribution, courage, creativity, curiosity, dignity, environment, efficiency, equality, ethics, excellence, fairness, faith, family, financial well-being, forgiveness, freedom, friendship, fun, generosity, grace, gratitude, growth, harmony, health, home, honesty, hope, humility, humor, inclusion, independence, integrity, joy, justice, kindness, learning, leadership, legacy, leisure, loyalty, nature, optimism, parenting, patience, peace, perseverance, power, pride, recognition, reliability, resourcefulness, respect, risk-taking, safety, self-discipline, self-expression, service, simplicity, spirituality, sportsmanship, success, teamwork, thrift, time, tradition, travel, trust, truth, understanding, uniqueness, usefulness, vision, vulnerability, wealth, well-being, wholeheartedness, and wisdom. All right. Were we able to jot down the ones that ring true to us? I'm curious how many, if I have a volunteer, how many you ended up writing down? Yes, yes, Virginia, go ahead. Or was your hand up from last time?
It was from last time, but I can go. I didn't finish. I was trying to think about the words as you were saying them.
Sure.
No, that's okay. But I have a lot.
Okay, well, go ahead. Well, what are yours? That's okay.
I had career, community, companion, compassion, confidence, courage, creativity, dignity, efficiency, excellence, fairness, family, freedom, fun, generosity, grace, gratitude, health, humor, independence, integrity, joy, kindness, leadership, patience, pride, recognition, respect, spirituality, travel, trust, truth. And then I didn't finish. That's where I was in the T's.
All right, so why don't we take a minute to try and narrow that down? And Virginia, since you were so gracious and courageous to share, I'm gonna come back to you to see if we can narrow those down, right? Sometimes it takes a little thinking there to narrow them down. They truly do fit in just two, right? But it might take a little bit of time to figure out what are some of those that are subsets of others, right? And so let me share, while we do that, I'll share what my two core values were. Mine are love and growth. Growth as in being all that God intended me to be. But there were several other ones underneath there, right? So for instance, under love, that's where I would put family. But love covers over a lot of different areas, right? But love is kind of a bigger value out there. The same for growth, right? Self-discipline would go in there, as well as self-expression, as well as, success to some extent, perseverance, right? I found those to be subsets of the one that really defines for me what that value is. And again, for me, that's growth there. So let's take a couple minutes here to see if we can narrow down everybody's list and your list as well, Virginia. Do I have, so I don't know if Virginia, if you're ready to share what you have been able to narrow down to, or if there's anybody else who wants to share their core values.
For me, kind of came down to that growth and connection. So like under growth, I have ambition, adaptability, adventure, like perseverance, well-being. And then under connection is like faith, family, generosity, gratitude, integrity. Integrity was the first thing that popped in my mind when you started talking about core values. Parenting, service. So mine come down to the growth and connection.
Sure. Well, thank you, Jessica. All right, so we'll move to the next step here, just in interest of time. We now have the 2 core values, and that's the first awesome step. Just having those, right? It's a great first step, but it's not enough. We have to move into how do we implement those in our lives, right? Because we could put them on walls. We see them in workplaces, list of values, but if people who work there don't live those values, it does nothing that it's listed on the wall or it's framed somewhere else. So we actually have to put those in place and live our life that way. Otherwise, they're in vain, right? We're gonna end up in the same place we are right now, feeling burned out and overwhelmed and overextended because we make those decisions, again, not from a place of who we truly are deep down, but from what society teaches us, what our family expects of us, or anybody else who has an influence of some sort on us, right? We are now going by their agenda instead of what truly is important to us deep down. And so if we don't sit down to do this work, that's why we run into the burnout land. So the first step is to name those values, but then step 2 is taking it to the next level, taking words, because now we have a couple words, right, that really signify what's important for us in our life, taking those words and implementing them. And the way we're going to do that is to define 3 or 4 supporting behaviors and 3 or 4 slippery behaviors. So what do we do? In other words, what do we do when we live into those values? And the easiest way to do that is to think about situations when we stood tall in our values. What kind of behaviors did we deploy in those situations? What does it look like when you are proud deep down of how you showed up? Those would be the supporting behaviors. And I'll share mine as an example. But on the flip side, we have the slippery behaviors, right? What happens in situations when we're not living into our values, when we feel like we betrayed ourselves deep down, or something just irked us inside, right? But we didn't take action. What were those behaviors? What did we do, right, in those situations when we really slipped away from who we really are and didn't respect those core values? So the next step here is to really jot down those supporting behaviors. For me, for instance, my 1 core value was love. Supporting behaviors for love for me is being a witness for all the people I interact with. That is making them feel heard and seen. Right? Now, what I did was, okay, love is a big thing, right? But what does that really mean for the day-to-day life, for my day-to-day life? It means that I take the time and focus my energy and my mental acuity on that person when I interact with them, right? My mind is not thinking about my kids and their activities at home that I have after work, or the task that's waiting for me on my desk. I'm devoting my full attention to them in that moment with an intention to serve and help, right? Now that truly, that truly defines for me, okay, that's how love shows up in my day-to-day. I can do that. And I'm going to define, like I said, 3 or 4 of those supporting behaviors. On the flip side, I have the slippery behaviors, right? What does it look like when I'm truly not living into my value of love? For me, that looks like criticizing others, right? It's easy to do that. Or getting easily upset over small things, or being impatient. And that also means, right, that perhaps I didn't take enough time to care for myself so that my reserves of love are not depleted when I'm out there in the world, helping my family, doing my work, helping my community, whatever my duties might be, right? I need to step down and be able to do those. So for me to show up and embody love, right, I have to take care of myself first. So I got to realize that first. That's one of the supporting behaviors, self-care. All right, so the final step. So what I would suggest and what I do for myself is to create note cards, or, if you have a journal and you prefer to write in your journal, or reminders on your phone, whatever works for you, putting things on the calendar. What I do, I have 2 note cards. One of them has my 1 core value of love. The other one has my core value of growth. On one side, I listed my supporting behaviors. On the flip side of that card, I list my slippery behaviors. And I do the same for my other core value. I keep that actually in my journal. And I do carry my journal with me. But whenever I am faced with a big decision, whatever that big decision is, right? It might be at work. It might be in my home life. I pull out those note cards, right? And I ask myself, what would Joanna do if she would stand in her value of love, right? What is that next step? And it's readily available to me. When I put that filter on, making that decision through that lens, my next step is right there. I can see it, I can touch it, right? It's easy for me to identify it. And so we should truly treat the core values like the North Star that they are, because truly they are a guiding star in our life. So before you end the day today, or perhaps right after the webinar, go do that, right? Write those core values down for yourself. Put them in your phone as a reminder. Put them on your calendar, whatever works for you best, right? Don't let them sit here on a piece of paper that you wrote during this webinar and let it die there. It will do nothing. Put it in place in your life, right? And whenever, again, you have a big decision to make, run those decisions through this great filter that's already inside of you, right? These are the important things that ring true to you. So you might as well use it. You'd be surprised how easy it is to navigate your life and even your work life when you stand tall in those values, right? Everything becomes so much more clear and easy. We tend to overcomplicate things because, again, we let others, somebody else's agenda, somebody else's values, the workplace's values, a social group's values dictate what we should do or the expectations they have of us. And that's hard, of course, because now you're trying to live up to values that are not yours in the first place. And you don't know what that true next step should be because they're not yours. Right? We lose track of the basic. This is really the basic stuff, right? But we lose track and we get distracted so easily. And then we wonder why we end up overwhelmed and burned out. I know we are coming very close here. We are at the end of time. I see Christy coming back up. We did have another section here, but before we wrap up here, I did want to share, with you my contact information and the book that Christy shared. I do have a few giveaways, so you can scan the code there or reach out via email or phone. I am happy to help. Now, this is just, of course, the beginning of a journey, right? How to get to a better work-life balance. But I believe it's the most important pieces here, right? To get us in the right direction. And then, of course, each one of our lives is a little bit different. And so we have to customize based on our life's uniqueness, the stage of life we are in, and our target, right? Where we're going. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate everybody's interest and participation. And I hope the content here was valuable and helpful.
Joanna, thank you so much. That hour went by so fast. Going through the exercises really helped, right? For me, helped look inward and really put some time and give space to think about, right, all of these things and how to think through my core principles and organize them so they can be, my North Stars moving forward. So this hour was certainly full of, for me, so much valuable information and exercises. Yes, Joyce is agreeing here too. This has been truly beneficial. So thank you so much again for spending time with us this afternoon to educate us on these practices and to share your book with us, because I'm sure there's so much more good gems in there that we can take away and use and apply to our life. And certainly some of the exercises, again, that you took us through today, your book, I'm sure will continue to build on those. So we appreciate you, appreciate your time and sharing your expertise and some of your book with us today.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, I'm here to help. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And thank you everyone for joining us. Enjoy your afternoon, or if you're elsewhere, especially Maury, you're probably going to sleep soon. So have a good evening.